the death of Drobo, and how it relates to cloud storage. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Notion. Do your most efficient work with Notion projects at notion.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is MacVoices Live. It's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are, at least in this linear timeline. If you are listening to this later, then it could be any time, just about anywhere. But if you are in our timeline, we'd love to have you join us here on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. Join us in the chat room. We have a bunch of friends there already. More seem to be arriving as we go. We have a little bit lighter panel tonight. We have several people on vacation and doing different things, but that doesn't mean that there's going to be any less wisdom. It's just going to be a little more densely packed tonight. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Before we go around the room and introduce who's here, though, I want to make sure I do a bit of a public service announcement. You've heard us talk about Frank Petrie on the show. Frank's still having some health problems. The good news is he is feeling better, and he is trying to get back in the game, as he phrased it. So in the chat room and in the show notes, I'm going to throw in a link to an article pardon me, that Frank authored on his blog, ympnow.com. That's ympnow.com. And doing a little bit of WWDC speculation. We're going to avoid that, the speculation part here, just because by the time this goes out on the feeds, WW will already most likely be well underway. But we want to make sure that we point that to you, because Frank came up with some thinking that I don't think any of us have really heard of or thought about before. So ympnow.com, go check it out. And while you're there, send Frank some best wishes for his health. I apparently may need some best wishes for my health because my voice is giving out already. I think the allergies are getting to me. So with that, let's go around the room, find out who's here, and we'll take it from there. It just always seems to be, it seems to be an event when David Ginsburg is not in the top left of my screen. But he is tonight. So, David, good to have you as always.
Great to be here. Missed you last week. Glad you're feeling a little better. We have plenty to talk about, so I think this is going to be a good discussion. So, but great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really hated to pull the plug on it, but it just, I'm already having good. Yeah, well, and I'm already having a little bit of trouble with coughing here now, so I'm going to try to hit the mute switch as much as possible. But it just wasn't in the cards. So thank you all for understanding.
No problem.
Next up, competing for the best dressed person on the panel, Mr. Jim Ray. Jim, good to see you.
I think maybe I should go by James tonight.
James, okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, from ProView, James Ray is joining us.
James Ray.
Yes. Okay, yeah, we'll just let that go. Also in competition for the best dressed, Ben Roethig is making his triumphant return after his own bout of a downtime. Ben, it's great to have you back. Hope you're feeling better.
It's great to be back, Chuck. It's been a while since I've not either been sick or at a film festival.
Does one have anything to do with the other?
Usually, yes.
Okay.
Depends on the order.
Yeah. The con crud is a. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, you and I combined for one completely properly dressed person.
It takes a village.
Yes. And also someone willing to crush their windpipe.
Yeah. Speaking of a village, Jeff Gamet is here.
I know exactly where you're going with that, Chuck.
Where am I going with it, Jeff?
Oh, you know.
Well, actually, no, I was thinking that it's a legitimate reference because you're about to be changing villages. So,
see, and I totally misread you then, because I was certain you were going right to the village idiot.
I thought exactly what Chuck said.
Yeah. So yes, I am moving villages.
Moving to the village of Longmont.
From the village of Boulder. Yeah.
Boulder ain't a village.
No, it's an amusement park. It's okay. So seriously, I heard someone refer to Boulder as a theme park, and they said the reason you can tell it's a theme park, and this applies to other cities, is that you have all the people that live here, but the people that actually do all the work in the city can't afford to live here, so they have to come into the city to work. So if you have a city where you have a population that lives, but the workforce comes to your location, you don't live in a city, you live in a theme park.
Okay.
There you go. But I have to say, it is a true honor to be on the same panel as James Ray Esquire and Benjamin J. Roethig III.
It's actually the only ever.
Oh, no, I'm including alternate dimensions.
That would explain a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you see Ben, the version of Ben that has the goatee, that's the evil one.
And since I usually have the goatee, I'm mostly evil.
Mostly evil.
Okay, well, Star Trek
You
reference.
still let me on.
I know. First Star Trek reference right out of the box. I like it.
That's right above being mostly dead.
I'm feeling better.
Oh, man. So let's start out with some. This is not great news. It's not, but it's also hardly unexpected. And that is that Drobo and StorCentric are in Chapter 11. They're looking for buyers, and they don't seem to be finding any. So it's pretty definite now that Drobo is history. And as someone who was a fan of Drobo, it really bums me out that they couldn't make it work, or that when StorCentric took it over, that they didn't give it a little more focus. Because
it's actually Chapter 7.
What did I say? I'm sorry if I said
Chapter 11.
I did say 11. You're right.
7 means they're done. They're officially done.
Yeah. So if you have a Drobo, folks, it is time to definitely move on, because the software is not being updated. The good news is that if you buy something with bays in it, like the Drobo, Synology has some, OWC has some, you can repurpose those old drives. So you lose some, but you don't lose, everything completely. So for what it's worth.
The big surprise here is that, to me, is that people have still been using Drobo at this point.
Yeah.
The writing was on the wall that Drobo was done years ago, which is sad because Drobo basically created this market and then handed it to companies like Synology. So seeing Drobo dead, to me, this is the point where there's no chance of like a lightning strike that brings it back to life. It's at this point, it's dead and cold. Yeah. That said, hey, I've got a Drobo 5N still factory sealed in the box. If anyone's in the market looking for one.
Oh,
you know what? I'm still running one of the, I believe it is the 5N, Jeff, I'm hooked to a machine that is not, Ventura. And so, it's the software is fine. It's still functioning. I have that machine backed up very well, but as far as a network device, it's fine. So it's one of those things that you have to figure out what your use case is and how long you want to run the risk. But on the other hand, if it's not a mission critical thing and you have a Mac that can stay frozen in time, it's still viable.
Or if you have a Windows machine, I believe the Windows software is much newer than what's available for the Mac.
That's a good point. I keep forgetting they also run on Windows. So, yeah. So anyway, that's Ben.
This is really a sad day. back in their heyday, Drobo was, they were innovating in the mass storage space like nobody else was. And it's, eventually, I'm completely blanking on their Synology kind of moved in with the same kind of hybrid RAID system. But we were a big Drobo user back in my GeekBeat days. But just kind of after the first change in ownership, things started to change. And then with StorCentric, it really went downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's too bad because it felt like they never properly educated the public. I mean, I remember stopping by the Drobo booth for the very first time at Macworld, and Mark Fuccio was the one that explained Drobo to me and what it was.
Yeah.
Took me a minute to get it, but once I got it, it's like, this is brilliant. And it's not going to completely eliminate backups, but it certainly made you feel a lot more secure. And for a while, they sponsored the show, and I was very proud to boast that I have never lost anything stored on a Drobo. And I can't say that for a lot of drives. So,
yep. Coming off of traditional RAID formats, it was like magic.
Yeah.
So,
well, what killed Drobo was cheap storage. That was one of the things that killed Drobo right there. The moment drives got so big that it no longer mattered if, and especially the way they got so cheap, it no longer mattered if you had your data on multiple drives going in multiple directions. So Carbon Copy Cloner and Super Duper and services like Backblaze just made the expensive Drobo equipment redundant. And you're right, it was a brilliant concept. You could take any size drive, as long as it was bigger than the one that you were replacing it with, and throw it in, and within 48 hours it was like it was always there. And it was flawless, and it was seamless, and it just worked until it became redundant and it don't really need it anymore.
Yeah.
And it never changed. You couldn't get apps, you couldn't do a lot of the stuff that you could do with Synology. And, I don't think Synology is long for this world either. Everything is kind of, for better or worse, everything seems to be kind of moving to the cloud. So once that happens, then going out and buying 22 gig single drives is going to be pointless. There's really no point in it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
And the commentary by Mr. Guy Serle, who has joined us. Guy, good to have you.
Looking good, Guy.
Thank you. Yeah, hey, I would put it on the other eye, but
well, I mean, you could.
you could, but I don't see it.
No, I get that. I don't see it.
Yeah. Here we go. Some things never change, Guy. There's just,
no. I'm the same person I always was, for better or worse. Sorry about that, everybody.
Today's MacVoices is supported by Notion. Do your most efficient work with Notion projects at notion.com/MacVoices. Project management tools are supposed to help you move faster and stay organized. The funny thing is, most are so complex that you try not to use them. When you do, you're usually flipping between 50 tabs or worse, several apps just to do your job. You clearly haven't found the right tool yet. That's why today I'm excited to share that Notion has just launched Notion Projects, which includes new, powerful ways to manage projects and leverage the power of their built-in AI features too. Notion Projects combines project management with your docs, knowledge base, and AI feature too, so you can stop jumping between tools and stop paying too much for them too. One workspace that includes everything you need, from brainstorming to drafting launch plans, to organizing sprints, and keeping everyone on deadline. And Notion can be customized to work the way you like to work, with timelines, tables, or Kanban boards. And did I mention integrated AI? Do your most efficient work with Notion projects. You can try it for free today at notion.com/MacVoices. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/MacVoices. When you use my link, you're supporting my show. Go right now to notion.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Notion for supporting MacVoices. I hear you, Guy, and the only thing, though, is that the beauty, well, Brad in the chat room made the point that with Synology and the other RAID drives, they have to have matched capacity. And that was one of the big benefits of Drobo. You had a 3, a 5, a 7, and a 10, and you could stick them all in, and it would maximize the capacity and the safety. But I still worry that people who, we all have more photos now. Now the good news is if you're in the Apple ecosystem, most likely they're going up to iCloud. But we have family videos, we have all kind of things. We have a lot of stuff that was pre-iCloud, and I still hear stories of people that I lost everything because a drive went bad. Or they call me or call Jeff or call Ben or call David and pleading for some help. And it's like, they're gone. And there's unless you want to go to some of the drive recovery places and pay literally thousands of dollars, then you might get some of them back.
Well, that's where something like Backblaze and services like that come in play. Yep. I pay $99 a year, and every single drive that I have connected to this computer is backed up to the cloud. And I had I had a Drobo that just went on me, and every single thing on it was lost, because when a Drobo goes bad, you can't just take those drives out and put them into another Drobo. It doesn't work like that. So I contacted Backblaze, and they sent me, I think, 2 high capacity thumb drives that were encrypted. So even if somebody had taken it off my doorstep, or it had been interrupted, or taken on shipment or whatever, they wouldn't have been able to access my data. But I had the key. They sent me the key, and I was able to get all my data back. And that made that $99 a year that I pay for Backblaze worth it. And it seems like as long as it's connected to the computer, that it's pretty much unlimited storage.
No, that's not what Backblaze is. Not unlimited storage. And I love Backblaze. I've been using it for like 6 or 7 years, but it's backup. It's not, I think the reason to have a big drive locally is if you need bandwidth locally. If you want to do video editing, you can't do that with a cloud. You need storage. I mean, maybe that will happen. I mean, look at it as we're sitting here streaming to the world from 6 different locations.
And Final Cut Pro just was released on the iPad. You're not going to store all of that video that you'll be able to do something with in Final Cut Pro locally.
Yeah, but interestingly, a lot of the reviews are like, one of the big problems with it is how to get the video on and off the iPad.
Okay, it's also the first gen for a device like that, and it'll get better.
Can you not work with the content directly on the drive with Final Cut on the iPad?
Not yet.
I don't have it, but just based on what I know from editing video, you need a lot of storage, and you need a lot of swap in order to manipulate video. And a lot of times when you bring video into a project, well, that video is copied so that you're not doing anything horrible to the original source video. And so if you have video that's stored on your iPad, and let's say it's 2 gigs, okay, well, in order to do anything with it, that means now you have to dedicate 4 gigs to it, because that file has to be copied into Final Cut. Plus, every single time that you make cuts, every single time you make various edits, every single time you add filters, whatever it is that you're doing with that video, that file's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. So if you have a 512 gig iPad, okay, well, you're fine for a while. But if you're using it out in the field, you could find yourself running out of storage relatively quickly. So when we can get to the point where wireless access speeds are fast enough and online storage is big enough, then all of these drives that, I mean, I've got a 4-bay, it's not Synology, it's just it's a JBOD box, and I've got almost 32 terabytes of storage in that box. And if anything happens to it, thank God for Backblaze, because then I'll be able to get all that back. But most of that storage is dedicated to doing various backups, including backing up all the video that I've been making for the last 10 plus years.
So what I'm hearing is there's no reason for me to even dabble with Final Cut on the iPad since I'm using LumaFusion. It's currently a much more capable video editor on the iPad.
Probably. Yes. But it's also been around a lot longer.
That's true. Yeah.
And
part of being, on the iPad.
So just a couple things. First of all, media, given that the new iPads are USB-C, that solves a lot of problems, because then you can have some relatively inexpensive, fairly fast storage accessible on your iPad. But to Guy, to your point, you have to buy a very large iPad in a lot of cases to have that material on there and work natively. Now, I know that folks from LumaTouch specifically told me that they can edit files off of an external USB-C drive plugged into your iPad. So I can answer that one. On the issue of remote editing, that's coming fast. I mean, there are a lot of companies that were showing at NAB really last year and more this year that are developing solutions, including Adobe with Premiere, that are not necessarily, they're working more with XML files as opposed to the actual video files. So it's almost like working with
a database.
Or proxy media. Yeah. So,
so they're going to do the editing in the cloud? The editing won't happen on your device?
You can do the editing on the device, but then the edits travel to the cloud where it actually is. This is my understanding. Somebody's going to email and say, "Oh, you got it wrong." But you're working almost with a proxy kind of media, so that you're working with where the edits would be or should be, and then the editing actually happens in the cloud. So you're sending the instruction rather than the actual manipulation.
Right. Including rendering and all the rest of that. Where it gets slowed down is when you start doing previews. When you start wanting to go, okay, I just did this thing for this video. Now I want to play it back with those things attached in it. So it has to render it wherever it is that it's being stored at, and then send you back the completed file with those edits. So that's your slowdown. The actual saying, okay, well, make a cut here and, do a color correction here. And I want to blow that up 50% there and do all these other things. That takes almost no time at all for your device to process, because it's not really the device that's doing the editing, or it's not doing the actual. Well, yeah, no, it's not actually doing the editing. It's sending those instructions to wherever the video and the program that's doing all of that is actually kept at. And with 5G, and for all of 5G's issues, it is relatively fast. And within the next probably less than 5 years, we're going to see double those kinds of speeds as we move into whatever buzzwords they want to use for the next generation of online access. And we're already seeing a lot of companies that are offering, for better or worse, 5G internet in the home. You're seeing commercials for it all the time, and it's completely overrated. And you're not going to get the kind of experience that John Travolta and those two guys from Scrubs is going to get, because that's
John Travolta?
more or less that's more or less a fantasy. But it's here now.
No, Ben, I know Ben can attest to that.
Yeah,
because I'm on it right now.
Right. Okay, and there you go, right there. Ben is using it, and unless you're in an area that has a lot of people that are accessing 5G all at the same time, your speeds are going to be in the 25 to 50 range. And that's honestly, that's good enough for almost
more than efficient.
Don't get me wrong. I love my gig speed. I really, really do.
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
do too.
paying for it. And for the most part, I'm honestly not seeing the benefits from it because there isn't really anything that I'm doing that requires gig speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, to me, that's kind of I want it for some of the things I do, but you know, at the end of the day, I mean, you get torn, you know, it also, like you said, you're paying for it. So you got to figure out what your use case is and what you can reasonably well justify as opposed to taking the money and buying Apple stock or something.
Well, and Chuck, and
the other question is, what's the speed that the server at the other end is going to take?
Sure.
You know, take in or supply data. I think it's a little premature to say local drives are, you know, obsolete. You know, maybe if one of
no, yeah.
That's what you said.
No, I said we're getting to that point. And it's not going to be that long before that's going to be true, but we're not there yet.
I think it's going to be a while. And there's two things that I see. You know, one is, you know, you still talk about video. Like when I take video on my drone, I take 15 minutes of video, and you know, I've got a fast internet connection. It's not gig, but it's pretty fast. And then, you know, Backblaze, like, you know, it chomps on that for hours. To get that up into Backblaze. So, you know, that's not like, you know, where I'm going to be working video editing. The second thing is I am nowhere near the point where I am wanting to have the only copy, you know, not have my own local copy of things. You know, I don't trust these cloud vendors to say, you know, you've got the only copy. And I'm not sure in my lifetime I'm ever going to feel that you know, I trust them to have the only copy of things. Yeah, backups, great, and probably more than one of them, but the only one, no, I don't think so.
If it's three places, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, but and also, you know, we grew up at a time when you had to be worried about things like that. I mean, look. If a file X that I have uploaded to Backblaze, there's no doubt in my mind that it doesn't exist on one server sitting one place in Backblaze. There's redundancy all over the place because that's what they do. So, you know, but I get your point, Jim, and I'm the same way. I'm not quite comfortable with it. So, but I'm fast getting to that comfort level.
You wouldn't use Backblaze for moving video back and forth anyway, because that's not what that service is meant for.
Not that service. But you know, and I don't believe they necessarily have a dedicated video service right now, but they do have other options that are not what we know of as we associate with them as backup. And if you want to see more about that, then go to my NAB interview with Yev Poussin of Backblaze that I just did a couple of weeks ago, and he can explain, you know, what Backblaze is, where they're moving beyond just the backup service we know and love. I did want to give Wayne, and we'll move on from this, but Wayne in the chat room said, the cloud is fine, but just remember that you're entrusting your very personal data to someone else. I trust my current backup strategy using my on-premises Synology NAS much more than a cloud provider. Very fair point, Wayne. You know, that's something, and that's one reason that I feel good about Backblaze, because I've had incidents where I needed to get things back from Backblaze and I got them back, and it works exactly as advertised. I can tell you there's one other provider out there that I had a very negative experience with and did lose data. The good news is it wasn't my data. It was the data for the company I was working for. The bad news is it was the data of the company I was working for. So, and I would, you know, run from them. This MacVoices Live panel is back next time to talk about Apple removing a whole lot of apps from the App Store for a variety of reasons. We also touch on the bias against Apple Pay by some retailers. That's next time on MacVoices. I'm Chuck Joyner. As always, thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.